master's in expressive art therapy. She has her private practice here in Bracebridge. For more ideas on self-awareness, thought patterns, and unblocking old belief patterns, Elke has brought her book for sale at the side.
Yeah, I guess.
It says here back. There are free downloads on the website and free supportive thoughts of the week. I now turn it over to Elke Scholz. Thank you.
Thank you. So good evening, John and June. Good evening, friends. And thank you, Bev. She's not here tonight because of the weather, but for inviting me. First, before I start, I wanted to actually say thank you to the church because every year you give money to Creative Living and Learning. And we just finished a 10-week intensive program. It's about 30 hours. It includes a hot lunch, psychoeducation, and art therapy for these young women. And Gravenhurst High School got that grant this year. And Anita and her family, I want to say, they've helped a lot. Anita's put a lot of hours into the group and also helped support the group. So these women, we had, well, we call them young women, they're grade 11 and 12. They're at risk because they're not showing up to school, and they've had lots of tragic losses. One of the fun comments is one girl piped up. She said, "I wasn't going to come to school today, but I remember it was programmed," which is us. So, and they're doing better. And some of the comments, and I just wanted to share that because we support them here, is some of the things they say is, "Now I have ways to handle my anxiety. People aren't as scary as I thought." And just another one that stood out was, "It's the first time I could share some of these things." And they've had some really, really rough goes. So thanks for that. So no, it's really important. The other thing is we're actually hoping to provide a program at the Bracebridge High School. So that may happen, but we're still, I guess they're just checking, making sure, because the program's solely dependent on community funding. And I did bring some brochures there if you want to read some more about that. And last week, Dr. Nick mentioned radio shows. Well, I was on the radio with him, and those two shows are on my website. So we had a lot of fun with that if you want to listen to that. So tonight, I'm going to talk about nonviolent communication. And that, actually, a few of you are here because of that, especially. And so it was interesting how this evening was going. I don't know how a lot of you were, but we didn't have power. And we were playing a phone tag, and then right at 6:30, the power went on. So I was already ready to go, and here I am. So last spring, this nonviolent communication really came across my desk. I've heard about it in different ways, but not as clearly as I did. And Marshall Rosenberg, actually, I'm going to just put this down. And I've got handouts for everybody. So Marshall Rosenberg actually, he designed this, and it's a tiny, tiny little book, but he has lots of little ones like this. And he talks about the surprising purpose of anger. And why would I bring that here? I think because we want peace on earth. And he has this lovely model of how we can have our needs met, and in most cases not be fighting, not have anger. And so it's interesting that I've always heard, we're responsible for our needs. However, it didn't really make a lot of sense because I didn't have the format of that, what did that mean? What did it mean to take care of your needs? So some basic principles before I'm going to actually do a little demo. And I'm thinking, you know what, why don't I do the handouts right now? So Michelle, can you help me? So everybody will get one of these. And then, yeah, I got it. Oh, thanks. You're in charge. They're kind of cheat sheets. And if you want to do any writing or anything, I did bring some pencils, because it's one thing to talk about it, though I'm going to give you some of the basic principles of this. And then the other piece I'm going to give is a little sample, and that would be some interaction with you. So some of the basic principles, and I do agree with Marshall when I say these, is that our feelings are never to be defended. So a lot of times we get very defensive. You know, we think, well, I'm mad because, or I'm feeling this because, or... And then we think we shouldn't feel a certain way because of what society has said or what we've learned. Feelings are just feelings. Everyone has their feelings, and there's a big period behind that. It never has to be defended, and everybody's going to have different feelings in every different situation. So the other thing, the other principle is that Marshall... Should I move over? Marshall says we have a full spectrum of feelings within us. So we have the gentleness and the caring of Mother Teresa, and we have the other full spectrum of the raging murderer in us. We have that, we all have that capacity within us. So to deny it and say, well, he gets mad and I don't ever get mad, that's not even true. We have that full spectrum. So what Marshall says, and again I agree, is all feelings are to be acknowledged. And when you think of anger, and people would have talked to him about anger and say, well, you're so calm. And he has tons of YouTube. So if you want to go on YouTube and watch him in action, he's amazing. And it's on one of those sheets. I think the blue one has his name, so you don't even have to write down his name. But he says in his books, he says, you know what, I have a great imagination. So, yes, I get really, really angry in my head, and that's what our imagination is for. So is to acknowledge that feeling of rage, because sometimes we do have that feeling that we're so angry. And so he says, you know what, that's what your imagination is for. Act it all out in your head. Then when you come back to the calm place, then you work through, and we'll go through some of these the sheets. And he says feelings are gifts. They're feedback as to what's going on in our life. So if you're just a bit irritated, well, that's feedback. If you're outrageously in rage, that's giving you a clue that something's not right. So our needs, that's another principle, and the blue sheet is the needs. We all have a full spectrum of universal needs. Again, not to be defended. And in every situation, everybody's going to be different. So let's say, my daughter and I are faced in a situation. Well, her feelings and needs are going to be different than my feelings and needs. It's just because we're individuals. And that's what makes this all so interesting. But I'll show you later how it does get mixed up and how he untangles it. And that's why I just love this model. So ultimately, again, there's no right or wrong in having a need. It's just who we are. And when we have our needs met, we thrive. So if we don't have our needs met, we start having these feelings. And that's a full spectrum of feelings. And in that yellow sheet is this whole spectrum of all these different feelings. And they're certainly not complete. You can add to it and articulate some of these feelings. And again, we're responsible to understand what our feelings are, so that's a learning curve, and to understand what our needs are in a certain situation before we can even begin a conversation. Okay? The other thing which is really interesting is judgments. So, and you'll see there's a little box with judgments and perceptions and assumptions. There again, which is so interesting, Marshall says there's no judgment against judgments. Just own them. Just know you have them. So, and know that that is the lens you look through. So that is, you need to know and own your judgments. Now, if a judgment is causing you pain, you might need to relook at your judgment. So here's a little example, is I have a strong judgment around doing my best and expecting the best. And I have a high bar. So it's rare that someone can meet that expectation. So when we're perfectionists, I know there's some in this room. I won't name any names. So I own that judgment. I'm aware of it. Most of the time, I like the judgment. I like that place of doing my best. So a few years ago, I remediated the siding and the windows in my house, and I found a young woman who liked to do the same thing. We had a riot in doing, when we had time, and we just really enjoyed fixing these windows. We were both proud of it. Still to this day, it's something that we're really happy about. And we've consulted about it, we enjoyed it, we had great pleasure in the finished product. So that's really cool. Now, I have to be careful though, but let's say I have a gardener that's helping me, and I know they're not going to do the weeding the way I want it done. However, I need to know that, I need to accept that, they're doing their best, and maybe I have to do some gardening behind them to bring it to my standard. So I can relax in that judgment, but not get angry about it. Okay, and know that they're helping me with the bulk of the work, and then I'm just there to do the fun stuff or the fine tuning. So that's okay. So it's owning that. So that's just a small example. Timing is another principle. Is your audience ready to listen to you? So, for example, mom comes in the house after a long day of working, is tired, hungry, and frustrated. Won't mention any names. Her teenage daughter's been waiting for her and almost jumps on her when she gets home. Mom snaps at her daughter and a fight arises. So if the daughter has a sensitive topic, or she thinks it's sensitive, she might want to ask her mom if she can listen at that moment. And then mom can say, yes, though I need to really eat, I need to catch my breath, maybe after supper would be better. Now that's in a perfect world. Of course, that doesn't always happen. So even when things start getting snappy, you can always stop and say, wait a minute, time out, let's just chill, because in the thinking place, and I want to bring you through this chart, is how it works. So any questions about that? Because it happens a lot. Somebody isn't ready to listen, and we're ready to talk to them about that. Okay? So.